The home was purchased in June 2021, location 2368 Bellevue, West Vancouver. When the home was purchased, the clients assumed they could just update and renovate the existing structure. Soon after moving into the home, the clients realized that the house was at the end of its life, and the next option would be to build a new home and consulted an architect to see what the options were. October 2021, 4 months after purchase, the roof leaked so badly they had to do a temporary roof structure to hold them over until they were able to build. November 2021, the rear deck roof started pouring water into the bedroom, so they had to wrap it with white plastic to stop it until they could build. After consulting with an architect to potentially build a new home, the clients were informed the site has a number of unique attributes that impact the site's usability, with the most significant related to the flood control regulations that have been adopted for West Vancouver waterfront properties. They need to take significant measures to protect both public and private property, has been borne out by a number of weather events in the past few years that have impacted the West Vancouver Seawalk and adjacent properties with considerable fiscal impact. 7 months after purchasing the home, the king tide flooded the client's entire property. The blue highlighted area is where the water level reached during the flood. It went up to the house and flooded the side of the home, and you will see in other videos and photos in future slides how devastating the flood was. This is a still photo just pointing out the areas that were flooded around the home during the flood. The water level reached a few feet. You can see it's up to pretty much the middle of the shed. These photos were taken in front of the C Strand building, which is the adjoining neighboring property to the development proposal. The water levels went up so high, they went into almost the middle of the grass of the property on the C Strand building. This photo is just showing how high the water level got. You can tell from the standing on the seawalk and looking up the elevation, the water level was extremely high. This slide is just showing the size and the amount of the debris left over from the king tide in front of the home and how dangerous it is. This is a more recent photo of the pier, looking much better and mostly restored, but the devastation was incredible. So this aerial view shows the neighboring property between the beach house and the C Strand building, with the structures set back quite a bit farther, and the C Strand building the same, and then the development property is very tight to the seawalk, and it's in between the railway and the seawalk, so there's only so much you can do for development. But that's why NHC Coastal Engineering did their site study and did the retaining wall the way they did it. So it was to protect the property. So this just gives a little indication, but it also shows the shoreline of the whole area, and it was completely underwater during the king tide, and it's becoming it's happening every year. Between the C Strand and the development property, there's flooding every year, a couple of times a year, but anything like the king tide completely wipes it out. So the rising sea level is happening a lot more frequently, and that's why they're making the changes and recommendations that they're doing. A site-specific study completed by NHC Coastal Engineering in February 2023 has defined a 7.5 0.01 GD flood construction level for this site. To achieve the site-specific FCL, we are requesting permission to vary from the maximum retaining wall height on the west and south property lines to a height of 6.6 GD. On the east property line, we are requesting permission to vary from a max grade angle of 36.9 degrees to a 45 degrees to allow for a 6.6 GD retaining wall. The current bylaw allows for a 4-foot wall to be erected on the property line, which for this property would have a top elevation of 3.9 GD. With the changes in weather and rising water levels, this height could change in the future with new site studies. We are looking for permission to build the wall to an elevation consistent with the mitigation measures noted in the WSP study for West Van lands, as well as the height of the overtopping wall required for this property as advised by NHC Coastal Engineering. This is 6.6 GD. It is unfortunate that the timing of the residential development is occurring well in advance of the plans being developed by the West Van Parks, and therefore the intersection between the public and private lands will need to be anticipated in the wall design. It was recommended in the WSP study that in order to protect public and private spaces, West Van would need to create a berm to a height of 4.7 GD, with the seawalk relocated on the top of the berm. So in the slides that we have shown the sections with the height elevations that are required. So in the front, it's 13 foot 1 inch height. The berm height is 4.7 meters. So that is all shown in the highlighted area. And on the side, it's 10 foot dash 10 and a quarter height. And then we also show up in the left or the left-hand corner, the existing, which is 4 foot, which is quite low. And I think in future would not be sufficient. In the variance we are proposing, the south, west, and east perimeter retaining walls will merge with these recommendations when the public property redevelopment eventually takes place. It should be noted that not anticipating this new height will ultimately have two impacts on the existing property. In the short term, it is likely that the approximately 20,050 square foot of landscaping adjacent to the lower wall will be at significant risk of regular inundation of the seawater, which would destroy landscaping, resulting in regular and significant costs to the owners. On a longer-term basis, it would leave the portion of the property significantly below that of the new seawalk height, which would have implications of the construction of the berm, future new seawalk, but would also have significant impact on cost. I have shown in the slide a red line that shows the height of the water level that happened during the king tide, which is quite a bit higher than the 4 foot, or it was in and around the 4 foot level. The height of the wall would not directly impact neighbors, though it would have an impact on those walking along the seawalk. In this regard, the development further to the west along the seawalk already presents a face to the public that is materially higher than 1.2 meters wall that the bylaw allows. And again, in this slide, I show a red line kind of going through showing what the water levels were during the king tide. This will give you an indication of what the water levels could be in the future. It should be noted that extensive consideration is being taken into the design of these retaining walls to reduce the visual impact and to provide a pleasant experience for the public, while also calculated precautions to combat the ongoing risk of the rising sea levels already caused.